marriage and surrogacy rights.
In Central Asia, they know how to put on a funeral feast.
Arranged all around the bare and simple room were tables of meat laid out with perfect order and symmetry, boiled bones, sausages, hooves, sheep's heads, all spotlessly clean, not a scrap wasted.
And in Western Ireland, we're stepping to the music.
A shag goes up. Come.
In
his 60s and carries plenty of weight. In perfect time to the music, he dances. Tap, 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 tap.
So join us on From Our Own Correspondent with me, Pascal Harter, after the news.
Hello, this is David Austin with the BBC News. Tens of thousands of protesters dressed in black are marching in Hong Kong, the day after the territory's chief executive, Carrie Lam, suspended highly controversial plans to allow extradition to the Chinese mainland. Demonstrators are calling for the bill to be completely withdrawn and for Mrs. Lam to resign. Observers are waiting to see whether the turnout is as big as last weekend. This 18-year-old student...
Of course, I will join the march today. I think it's more important to express my views peacefully, in a peaceful manner rather than in violent methods, because we think peaceful methods can be heard by the government. And I just want my views to be heard. And I just want the entire Hong Kong citizens' views to be heard by the government.
China has announced that it's reached a broad consensus on international counter-terrorism efforts with the United Nations, following a controversial visit by the UN counter-terrorism chief. With more details, here's Celia Hatton.
The UN's counter-terrorism head, Vladimir Voronkov, visited the far western region of Xinjiang, where the UN says that more than 1 million ethnic Uyghurs and other Muslims are held in detention centers. Several countries, including the United States and human rights groups, have protested against his visit. They say it supports China's argument that mass detention is necessary to counter terror threats in Xinjiang. The UN's human rights chief, Michelle Bachelet, has long pushed for full access to Xinjiang in order to investigate allegations of forced separations and disappearances. But so far, Beijing has refused to grant her request.
The Saudi Crown Prince has echoed Washington's assertion that the kingdom's arch-enemy, Iran, was responsible for attacks on 2 tankers in the Gulf of Oman on Thursday. In a newspaper interview, he called on the international community to take a resolute stand. James Reed.
Saudi Arabia's rivalry with Iran has deepened sharply since Mohammed bin Salman became crown prince and de facto ruler 2 years ago. So it's no surprise that he's joined the United States in blaming Tehran for the tanker attacks. In the newspaper interview, Crown Prince Mohammed insists that Saudi Arabia does not want war. But he says it's time for the world to take a decisive stand against what he calls Iran's attempts to spread chaos and destruction. Iran denies it was behind the attacks in the Gulf and has long accused the Saudis of trying to get the US to wage war on their behalf.
Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has said he'll discuss his country's purchase of a Russian missile defense system with President Trump at the G20 summit this month. The S-400 batteries are expected to start arriving in July, despite repeated warnings from the US that their deployment endangers military cooperation. This is the BBC. The Mexican authorities say they've detained at least 700 migrants, mostly from Central America, in the eastern state of Veracruz. They were found packed inside 4 cargo lorries. Officials said the migrants were given food and water before being taken to a detention center. The people of Guatemala go to the polls today to elect a new president, a new Congress, and new mayors. About 20 people are competing to succeed President Jimmy Morales. 2 high-profile candidates have been barred from running: Zuri Rios, the daughter of the former dictator Efraín Rios Montt, and the former Attorney General Thelma Adana. The frontrunner is Sandra Torres, the ex-wife of the former President Álvaro Colom. 2 light aircraft have collided in mid-air in New Zealand as they prepare to land at a regional airport. Both pilots were killed as the planes hit the ground near the town of Masterton. 4 parachutists on board one of the planes had jumped before it crashed. A helicopter, also preparing to land, managed to avoid the collision. One of the biggest rivalries in sport will be renewed today when India play Pakistan in the Cricket World Cup. The match in the English city of Manchester is expected to attract a global television audience of 1 billion. Bollywood stars are among those who've flown in from the subcontinent for the clash. Our cricket correspondent, Jonathan Agnew, will be watching.
History and recent form both point to an Indian win, but such is the intensity of these all too rare meetings that predicting anything.
And this relatively small country produces more missionaries than any other country in the world, after the United States.
Hi, my name is Chung Soo Kim. I'm the International Relations Manager here at FEBC Korea, Far East Broadcasting Company, Korea.
It's a slick, impressive operation that oozes wealth and power.
So in the lobby of this new, very modern high-rise building is a donor list. Donated more than
10,000 US dollars are listed here. Downstairs we have US dollars are listed here. Downstairs we have another donor recognition section. Anybody donated between 4,000 and 10,000 are listed there. And outside, anybody who donated even $1 or 1,001 are listed.
So how much did this new building cost altogether?
$40 million approximately.
The station's goal is to use radio to subvert the North Korean on religion and ultimately pave the way for a unified, Christianized Korean peninsula.
So how big is your station? I hear it's got some of the biggest transmitters in the world.
The one we have in Jeju is 300,000 watts.
Parking mode off.
And the maximum they allow is 50,000. So that covers the entire China. I mean, we receive reception reports from European countries, Germany, Austria. We're on the side. Dr. Kim is coming, so we may continue later on. Okay.
The staff rush to line up and bow as the chairman of the radio station, Dr. Billy Kim, strides into the studio. He's wearing a red festive knitted jumper over a shirt and striped tie and shakes my hand firmly and warmly.
God bless BBC. Okay. Thank you very much.
He certainly knows how to entertain. He was a good friend of the famous late evangelist Billy Graham.
Pyongyang, the capital of North Korea, was called Jerusalem of Orient. So we need to send gospel because they're not allowed us to come in, any missionaries, any preachers. So the next best thing would be the radio aid, the way to send the gospel to North Korea.
And how do you know people are listening?
Well, people came out of North Korea. They tell me, and sometimes U.S. citizens used to visit their family in North Korea, and they tell me, you know, under the blanket, they're listening.
And you mentioned before that the price of listening to these radios, being caught with these radios, is very high. Does that ever weigh on your conscience?
I think as a minister, naturally you feel sorry for those people. At the same time, we don't know how many people will listen, they've been encouraged, their faith has been grown. So one hand is a risk, another hand is a challenge to listen.